Ladies and gentlemen, podcast listeners of all ages, are you bored with traditional and dull real estate content?
Yes!
Do you want to be entertained by the most successful, innovative, and forward-thinking industry professionals?
Yes!
Do you want to elevate your business, be challenged to take action, and raise the bar in your personal and business dojo?
Yes!
Now welcome your ninja host, Jeff Fitzer.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate and Mortgage Content Ninja podcast. And today we are going to take a deep dive with a gentleman that I have recently been introduced to and gotten to know his service, his platform, and I am excited to bring it to you today. This is actually the second time in our podcast history that we'll be talking to a gentleman who works on converting your leads for you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Malik of Conversion Monster.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Jeff, for having me. Great to be here.
Welcome to the show, my friend. Let's dive right in. But first, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what your background in the business is, how you ended up coming to creating this company.
Sure. My name is Malik. I currently live in Chicago. I run a real estate team out of the Keller Williams Lincoln Park office. And I'm also the co-founder of Conversion Monster, which is a real estate ISA company, which is located in Buffalo, New York. I got into the business in 2003 on the lending side of the business, actually. So I started off in the mortgage business back when lending tree leads were just coming out. And so I've always been around the inside sales model. I helped one of the largest privately held mortgage banking companies really build their inside lending division from zero to about $150 million a year. And so, for better or for worse, I've kind of always been around inside sales and understood that animal. I ended up becoming the director of the bank. I left that position in 2007, 2008. Started investing in real estate myself, just personally. Ended up growing that business and turning it into a brokerage. And then ended up merging with Jamison Sotheby's in Chicago. I've been around, once again, I stayed around internet leads the entire time. Around probably 2012, 2013, I started to really realize that the internet lead game was starting to change quite a bit. That's kind of what led me into, having these thoughts and these ideas about starting Conversion Monster.
Awesome. So your experience. So going backward, let's take a step back. You're going back to 2003. You're talking about internet leads back then. What did the landscape look like back then? Because frankly, I have never been a lead guy. And so understanding, I have a hard time even picturing what that looked like back then.
Yeah, it was very competitive. I mean, if you know Lending Tree's motto, it was, when banks compete, you win. So, they were one of the first ones to come out to have mortgage bankers really starting to compete with where, lead response time and getting to the leads very quickly and building a relationship was vitally important. It was a game changer back then because everything before that had really been revolved around relationships. And so that's where the first sort of speed to contact, started to evolve from. So the idea was, a lead would come in, somebody would go online, they'd enter their information, and then that lead would go to 4 different mortgage bankers at once. And so really the name of the game was, hey, the first person to get to them and build that relationship and talk to them about lending, 75% of the time, won the deal. One of the interesting differences is that on the lending side, you're also competing on interest rates, you're competing on closing costs. Whereas on the real estate side of things, it's really, much more about the relationship. But because the average consumer only spends 5 or 6 minutes on a site, it was just vitally important. And again, in order to compete, you had to be the first one to call them. And so that's where this sort of process and habits were built from me at least, is always being the first to get to those leads.
So when you shifted over to real estate, and as not an investor side, but as a real estate agent, what lead platforms were you using when you made that conversion?
So I had a relationship at the time with a company that was called highrises.com. So we were the exclusive team for them in Chicago. And when it first started, when you got internet leads back then, which is, you're going back about 8-9 years, the leads were pretty good. There's about 5.5 million home sales every year in the United States. And that's pretty flat with the exception of the downturn in the, 08, 09. But every year there's about 5.5 million home sales. And 10 years ago, it first started, there was about 5 million leads. And then the next year it doubled. And then the next year it doubled again. And now here we are 7-8 years later, and you're talking there's 85 to probably 100 million leads. There's only 5.5 million home closings every year. So if you look at the math, what's really happened over time is it's just gotten diluted. I mean, there's been a number of vendors that have entered the space. Real estate obviously has shifted from offline, from park benches and grocery and billboards and grocery store cards and newspapers. It's all moved online. What's happened is, agents have gone online, they buy leads, but the fundamental, concern here, the fundamental issue is that you have 15, 20 times the number of leads as you do home closings in a year. And so when I was working through this, I started to notice that it just got to be a lot more difficult. I was competing, I was doing the same things, but it just got harder to convert. And that has to do with a lot more of the introduction of the Zillows, the Trulias, the Realtor.coms. A lot more vendors were competing for eyeballs than they were before. You were competing, with not only other agents, but you're competing with their attention, the attention of the leads. And so basically what's happened is I said, this isn't working for me anymore. This is chewing up 30-40% of my day. It's not working. I'm chasing these leads. They're not going anywhere. They're requiring a lot more work. And I said, there's just something wrong with this model. I can't do this as at the time as a single agent. It's not a good utilization of my time. And that's where sort of this idea sprouted of, okay, going back to my lending days of the inside sales agent model, I thought leads should not be flowing directly from the web to a real estate agent. They should be flowing to an inside salesperson. They should be going to somebody who's going to scrub that lead first because, real estate is an outside sales job. You're out, you're looking at properties, you're doing buyer tours, listing presentations, appraisals, inspections. You're not sitting in the office waiting for leads to come in. And so recognizing that, I said, this is no longer a good utilization of my time. And I'm spinning my wheels here, and there's got to be a better way. And so from that idea, sort of that thought process, Conversion Monster was born.
Love it. And so if you're a real estate agent or you have a team or you're a broker listening, let's be honest, most salespeople, most real estate agents are not very quick to lead. There's always an excuse why they don't have time to answer their phone, or, hey, they might actually legitimately be out showing a home or legitimately in an appointment and they can't. And so what happens at that point, you basically just pissed away your money on the lead because there is somebody out there who's going to get to it faster, right? So rather than hiring your own ISAs and training them on something that you're not even good at, why not hire the experts to do that for you? So with that said, let's take that deeper dive and tell the listener more about why Conversion Monster is that solution.
So I mean, basically when, I was back in the trenches and realizing that, going back to my days and lending and understanding that speed to contact is the number one factor in part of this lead conversion. As the days and weeks started to pass and I'm realizing when these leads were coming in that this is just not going to get any easier and this isn't going to change. And so I said, there's got to be a better solution for this. And I developed, I had this idea that, man, if I'm having this problem, I bet you that a lot of other real estate agents all over the country are experiencing the same pain. And that pain is you just sat down for dinner with your family, or it's, Saturday afternoon and it's 1:00 and you're at your kid's, ball game, or you're out showing properties or whatever the case might be. Leads are never coming in at a convenient time. They're never really coming in at 10:00 in the morning on a Monday when you're sitting in the office. They're always coming in at times that are convenient for your clients, right? Which is generally lunchtime, evenings, weekends. And so I created this solution with the idea that there's no way that I'm going to get to every lead within 5 minutes, right? It's impossible. And not only that, basically only having a name, an email, and a phone number how am I going to be, I have to treat every lead the same. I don't know if that's $1 million buyer or that's just somebody kicking the tires. And so based on that, I took a hard look and said, we need to make the quality of the agent's life better, including mine. I mean, it was selfish, right? I was starting it for myself, really. But I figured that, everybody else is going to need that same solution. And so, now what happens is when a lead comes in, Conversion Monster will call that lead within 5 minutes. We'll also text that lead and we'll email that lead. If we're not able to get a hold of them, we will call them 6 more times over the course of 10 days. We will text them 5 more times and we will email them 5 more times over the course of those first 10 days. And then if we don't reach them, we will put them into a long-term nurture plan to reach out to them on a cadence that I set up between phone calls, emails, and text messages that will go for an entire year.
Wow. Do me a favor. Rewind the beginning of that. Within the first 5 minutes, you're calling, texting, and emailing.
Correct.
That's powerful. Okay, go on.
Yep. So we're calling, emailing, texting within the first 5 minutes. What we fully have recognized are that people that are coming online today initially, the statistics basically say there's a good chance they might not be buying for 8 to 14 months. So a lot of times, if they're just starting their search and a real estate agent contacts them and they hear, oh yeah, I'm just starting, I'm not looking for a year, or I'm not looking to buy for a year, most of us don't have systems and processes and things in place where you're going to be able to continually stay up on that and stay in front of that client for an entire year of time. Generally what we're going to say is, okay, well, you will put you on a drip or we'll call you back in 6 months and see where you're at. But, that's the difference. What we're doing at Conversion, and that's where so many deals are slipping through the cracks, and conversion rates are, they're dismal. The industry average is 2%. And the reason is because we don't nurture. We don't incubate. We don't stay in front of them. It's because we get 5 leads today or 3 leads today, and then we get 3 more tomorrow and 3 more the next day or 2 more or whatever it is. And you've forgotten about the ones that you gotten a few weeks ago. And you just get busy with the new fresh leads. And we forget to remember that the fortune is in the follow-up. And we drop the ball, right? And we don't follow up as much as we should. And we don't stay in front of these leads. And so that's what I built Conversion Monster for, is to maintain my branding, the agent's branding, to contact them within 5 minutes and then stay in front of them the entire time. When they've told us that they're ready to go and they're under the 6-month mark, at that point, we're going to do everything in our power to get them on the phone with the agent, right? We don't want the agents to have to worry about the leads that are 9 months out, a year out, or 2 years out, tire kickers, window shoppers. We want them just to have to worry and focus about the leads that are hot. And to us, we take them through a series of qualifying questions. We scrub them, we qualify them, and once we've determined that this is a hot lead, we attempt to do a live transfer and introduction to the agent to take them right then and there and establish that relationship.
All right, I've got several questions just based on that conversation there, but let's stay right where you're at. A qualified lead. Define that.
So a qualified lead means that we're asking a series of qualifying questions, starting with price point, have they been pre-approved for financing, the neighborhoods that they're looking in, and time frame, right? If they've meeting most of these qualifying questions that have been predetermined, then we will determine this is a qualified lead, and we will attempt to warm transfer that lead over to the agent right away. If the agent is unavailable, then we will turn around and we'll set an appointment for the agent to call back at a scheduled time. If they are longer than 6 months out, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to nurture that relationship until they're within that 6-month window. And then we're going to attempt to do a live transfer and or set an appointment for them.
And by nurture, we're not talking about putting them in a CRM where you send them emails telling them to set their clocks back, or you're sending them recipes for the holidays like everybody else is. We're talking about warm touches, correct?
Yes, correct.
The things that they don't do.
Correct. Our ISAs are physically going in and setting follow-up appointments in their own calendars to reach out as touch points along the way, and at the same time maintaining the agent's branding. We're really looking at ourselves as an extension of the agent's team. And so that's why it's always been important for us to make sure that when we're calling these leads, they feel like we're basically sitting right there with the team, that we're sitting in the same office, right? We do everything in our power not to make it sound like we're calling from a call center or that they know we're from a different region. We want to make it as seamless as possible, sound like we're the assistant. We're just calling on behalf of the team. And that's worked really well for us.
That was going to be my next question. So any agent who's considering a service like this, you're calling on behalf of, hey, this is so-and-so calling for the Joe Smith team at KW, whatever. And it makes it seem like it's a part of their team, which is the personalized piece of it. Now, let me backtrack this. So let me not just assume that everybody knows even what the hell you're talking about. I mean, obviously, what I mean by that is, everybody knows what a Zillow lead is, Realtor.com, Facebook leads, those are hot right now. If you invest in those leads, this is where Conversion Monster kind of bridges the gap for where most agents, I would argue, are probably failing themselves, failing the lead. And I assume that all of those platforms, or most of them, they zap the lead directly to you guys as if it's going to the agent, correct? Or maybe both of them?
Correct. Yep.
So for anybody who doesn't understand that, that's the basics of how this works.
Correct. Yeah. And I mean, it's, again, really the most important, a couple things, one is that there was this, there's a study done by MIT like 10 years ago. That's sort of the gold standard of like why it's so important. So there's a science behind, calling somebody within those first 5 minutes, because within 10 minutes, the opportunity to reach that lead drops by like 50%. Just 5 extra minutes, the opportunity to reach that person, that lead drops by 50%. And by 30 minutes, it's like 10%. So just waiting 30 minutes to call that lead gives you a 90% failure rate on achieving contact. And then the statistics have proven to us that it takes at least 6 phone calls then to achieve a 90% contact rate. So now we're just going after contact rate. That doesn't even mean that they're interested or not. That's just to get them back on the phone. And I don't know any agents that are making that many attempts to get a lead back on the phone, because the average is less than 2 phone calls. I mean, the average is 1.5. We all know we can't make 1.5 phone calls, but that's the average.
Sure.
So no one's doing, no one is making enough phone calls and the follow-up that's required in order to achieve the contact.
I would wholeheartely agree. And if anybody says otherwise, they're probably lying to themselves. Look in the damn mirror. If they're even calling them at all.
Right.
It's an epidemic, and it's in our industry as well, the mortgage side as well. And I want to get into some of that a little bit later, but let me ask you another basic question. So these leads, somebody could be perusing the internet at any hour of the day. What are the hours that your ISAs are nurturing, and what happens when a lead comes in at 3 a.m.?
So as of right now, what we're doing is our normal hours are 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then we're open from 9 to 6 on Saturdays and Sundays.
That's each time zone?
That's every time zone. Yep. And we're going to a system of where we're actually going to have live ISAs that won't be doing calling after hours, but they're going to be available for emailing and texting. So instead of a chat bot or artificial intelligence, we're actually going to have live ISAs that are going to be on the other side, so that when leads do come in after hours, they're going to be able to respond to them with a little bit of a different process of the intent of getting an agent to follow up with them in the morning, or having one of our ISAs actually call them later on that morning. So we're going to a full 24-hour system, even though with the hours that we're operating, it's never really been an issue. If a lead comes in at 3 o'clock in the morning, we call at, as soon as we get in at 9 o'clock in the morning, it's always been fine. But we're just continually looking at ways to improve our process. And by going to 24 hours, that's our next step.
Awesome. So the next question that I think I would have, and I think most agents would probably have, is, okay, so I get how this works. I get what you're doing. I get how it's personalized. I get how often you're going to contact them, which is awesome, by the way. And personally, I don't know of many services out there that actually nurture a lead for as long as it takes. It's not, a lot of these services, and there's a handful of them out there that will do this for, 10 times or for a week, 2 weeks, whatever. There's not many services that I know of that will actually nurture these leads for as long as it takes, which is very, very powerful, because especially in today's world where we know the pains people are having with the quote unquote now leads of Zillow, Realtor.com, then a lot of people are starting to transition over to Facebook type leads, right? That are longer term, more nurture leads. But a lot of agents don't have the patience for that. And so this is the solution, in my opinion. This is why you and I got connected to each other. And this is why we're talking today, because to me, it's very exciting. I think it's an awesome platform that most agents should have in their business, especially if they're investing in leads. So another question, I digress there for a second, but another question that I would have is so how do I, as the agent, know that you're actually following with my leads? Is there a way that I can go track this? How does that work?
Yeah, so great question. Right now we have an internal lead management system that we utilize. So all the leads come into our ISAs. We have full transparency. So our agents will be given a username and password. They can log into the system anytime they want. They can see the leads in real time, and they can also listen to all of our recordings. So they can listen to every call. They can listen to what's being said. They can see the leads being worked. We're fully transparent from that standpoint. So that's how they're going to know that these leads are being worked. And we encourage our agents to do that as well.
Awesome. And so if, for example, and this takes me to my next part of the conversation, as everybody knows, I'm on the lending side trying to provide value to the real estate side. So that's the purpose of this podcast, of course. But secondly, I'm interested in our business strategy is trying to find ways to bring value to real estate agents beyond the same old thing that we all have, which is, these are my rates, these are my programs, this is my marketing. That doesn't differentiate us. What can differentiate us is, hey, I know about these systems. Let's go invest in one of these platforms or leads. I'm already investing in it, but let's now go in at this together. Is that something that a real estate agent and a lender can do together? That they can split costs, they can both go in and manage leads. How does that work?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that probably has more to do with maybe RESPA guidelines in different states, but we do have lenders and agents that are doing that right now. And so from, the mortgage side of the business, we are working with a few lenders where we are, calling, and they might have like a lead source like Zillow, and we're calling, and we're using a different script that leans more towards checking to see if, they've been pre-approved for financing, asking them about lending and talking to them. That's really the first steps or the first requirement. And we're trying to direct those to the lender first. Now, if they're just saying, we're not interested in any of that, we just want to see the property, or we just want more information on the property, then the lender generally has different realtor partners. And then at that point, we will attempt to do a live transfer, set an appointment for an agent. So we actually have two different platforms that we're working with depending on who it is. Now, some lenders are just doing it and contributing to the cost with the full expectation that we're going to send every lead over, or we're going to send every warm prospect over to the real estate agent, and they're just doing it for the relationship. And that's great too.
Sure. Yeah. It's similar to what a lot of us do on Zillow.
Yep.
So, okay. Now the $1 million question is, how does this work? Do I pay per lead? Do I pay per month? How does this work? How much does it cost me?
Yeah. Great question. So we're doing it's packages. So, we have packages that start from 50 leads a month, 100 leads a month, 200 leads a month, all the way up to custom pricing. The cost is somewhere between $4 to $6 per lead if you broke it down. We start pricing around, $700, $800 a month. How we've looked at it, or how I looked at it, as the cost to hire an ISA internally is somewhere around probably $40,000 to $50,000 a year, let's say, with, salary, hourly, bonuses. We cover right now we're covering just over 70 hours. So you're talking about the equivalent of 2 ISAs. So now you're talking about $70,000 a year in that neighborhood. And not in addition to, advertising, recruiting, interviewing, coaching, training, and then that person potentially leaving, right? We never miss a beat. So if one ISA is sick, it doesn't stop us. 2 ISAs are sick, they don't show up, they're on vacation, they're day off, we don't miss a beat, where that could potentially affect the everyday business where leads are costing money every single day and coming in at all hours. And so when you look at it from that perspective, we're about 80% less than the cost of having to hire the equivalent of 2 ISAs in-house for the number of hours that we cover. So that was another part of my goal, was to try and really provide a cost-effective way for, my fellow agents to be able to do this and help scale their businesses.
Yeah, it makes sense. And not to mention, you didn't even mention, potentially having to match taxes and having to provide benefits. And, and then there's most humans want to work 9 to 5, or they want to work specific set hours. So you're getting more out of them. And then the $1 million thing of, you have to manage these people. You have to babysit them. Yeah. And that's, you can't put a price tag on that, but it's a real pain in the ass I personally wouldn't want to have to do.
Yes, it is.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. So, and then on your website, and since I'm glancing back and forth, you also mentioned there's also something on here about expired listings. Why don't you tell the listener a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we have an expired listing program that is basically for agents that there's a number of different vendors, just like there is for the buyer internet side of the business. There's the Zillows or Realtor.coms on that side. There's also, vendors on this side of the business that compile expired listing data and provide it in a simple CRM format, like, there's Vulcan 7, Land Voice Data, Espresso Agent, Mojo. There's a few of these companies that are out there that compile that information. And what it is they compile that information overnight so that they pull from the MLSs. They have as much data as they can get. And generally speaking, we have somewhere between 3 to 5 phone numbers for every prospect that comes in. And what we do is we start calling at 8 a.m. in whatever time zone that you're in. So whether it's Eastern or Pacific, we start calling at 8 a.m. and it's a straight cold call. We're cold calling expired listings with the idea of setting phone appointments for the agents to build a relationship and have the opportunity to go in and do a listing presentation to help them build up their listing side of the business. And I can say that I would say 90% of agents have call reluctance when it comes to having to do straight cold calls. So we have found that with us doing this all day and be able to provide warm leads, it's been a service that's been, really regarded, from a lot of different agents around the country. And it saves them from having to get kicked in the teeth, every day calling and getting hung up on and yelled at. And we sort of joke around and say, we'll do all that for you so you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to get yelled at. You don't have to get screamed at. You don't have to get told you're the 30th agent to call them that day or whatever it is. We'll bear the brunt of all of that. And then you just get to talk to the warm and fuzzy people who have agreed to speak to an agent. And that makes it a lot more palatable.
That's awesome. And let's be honest, very few people like to pick up the phone. Yeah. So that's powerful. That is very powerful. So again, real estate agents or lenders, if you are where most people are in the industry right now, we're coming to the end of what most would consider a somewhat challenging year. The business is not getting necessarily any easier, and you're needing to find ways to grow your business. You already are buying the leads, probably not converting them very well. This is the solution. And if you haven't explored this option before, you absolutely need to. Tell them how they can get a hold of you, or how they can get a hold of the service, whichever way you want, or both.
You can reach me at RO at conversion-monster.com. My phone number is 312-208-1184. That's my direct cell. And you can find us online at conversion-monster.com. And that has all of our information, pricing, that's up there. Of course, you can connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn. More than happy to discuss the service and details with you.
Fantastic. And I can personally say, because I've been on the site several times now, it is very easy to navigate and very simple and has all of the answers right there for you. So again, I think this is a service that more of us need to be using. I can personally say that Ro and I are going to be talking a lot more in depth here coming up because we are going to be employing their services. And I have gotten some amazing testimonials from the likes of the Nick Baldwins of the world and Tristan Ahumadas, who said, you got to talk to Ro. And if people like that say, I need to talk to somebody, man, it doesn't matter what it's for. I'm going to go talk to them because there's good reason for it. And I think I'm excited about actually exploring this and growing our business, helping our agents grow their business, and seeing what you guys can do for us. And hopefully we can be a nice big fat testimonial for you down the road as well.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Looking forward to it.
Awesome, brother. Well, I appreciate you being on today. And again, if you like what you hear on this podcast, please don't be shy. Share us, like us, give us testimonials. We appreciate all the feedback we can get and any of the promotion that we can get as well. So don't be shy. And Ro, again, it has been awesome talking to you. And I look forward to much more in-depth conversations here in the near future.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. And I hope your audience got some valuable tidbits out of that. And I'm available to speak if they've got any follow-up questions after the podcast.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Have a great one.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
If you're looking to elevate your business, aligned with continual innovation and evolution, Jeff wants to talk to you. Go to FitzerMortgageTeam.com and connect with him today.